2020 has been a long, random, and emotionally exhausting year that it's easy to forget some events that took place throughout the year. This is going to be a list of some of those events, part 1. I'll be starting off the list with something that happened all the way back in February 2nd to be exact, and that is the Super Bowl halftime performance. This year, both Shakira and Jennifer Lopez took turns headlining the Super Bowl. Shakira did the first half of the performance and Jennifer Lopez did the other half. At the end, they all came together and closed out the show together. Like I said, the halftime Super Bowl performance happened in February 2nd, which coincidentally was also Shakira's birthday. How cool must have that been to celebrate your 43rd birthday while performing at the Super Bowl? Not everyone gets to say they've done that. Another pretty eventful thing that happened this year was the release of Animal Crossing's New Horizon, which happened back in March 20th, 2020. This game has beaten so many records as far as sales. I'm sure even if you don't play the game, you've heard of it. That's how popular it became this year. It came at a perfect time too, with most people having to be at home because of lockdown or quarantine. It gave people a lot of chances to still be able to hang out with their friends, even if it was virtual, and that's always a plus. On a less happy news, this year shocked us with a lot of unexpected deaths. Death is a part of life, but it definitely is more tragic when it happens to someone so young. It's crazy to think about all the things that they could have accomplished in their future, but they won't get to do so anymore because they passed away. I don't think it's appropriate to rank celebrities' death, so I'm just gonna talk about one that personally surprised me a lot and affected me a lot, and that was the death of Naya Rivera. Naya Rivera tragically passed away back in July 8th, 2020 after her body was found floating in the lake in a very, very unfortunate accident. It was a really weird time of mourning for me. I never met her. I never interacted with her. I know it sounds really weird, but for some reason I felt like a part of me had been taken too. I don't know. It was just very unfortunate and very tragic, and I think for some reason this year a lot of really unexpected deaths happened that didn't even have to do with the pandemic or anything that was going on with the world. It was just life. But yeah, before moving on, my condolences goes out to Naya Rivera's family and all the other actors, actresses, or celebrities in general who lost a loved one this year. Something else that happened this year was the release of Dua Lipa's second album, Future Nostalgia. Future Nostalgia was released back in March 27th. It may seem unimportant, but the release of this album, especially during such a hard year, was definitely very, very needed, and it was something that I didn't even realize I needed. The album is filled with a lot of fun songs, a lot of very fun lyrics, very smart lyrics, very 80s inspired pop sounds. I highly recommend it. Stream it, buy it. The next thing on my list is something that I don't want to get into too much because we all went through it, we all experienced it, and that was the pandemic that took place this year. It resulted in a lot of people passing away. It resulted in a lot of families not being able to see each other during very important milestones in their lives. It resulted in us having to go on lockdown. Like I said, I don't want to get too into it because we all experienced it, we all lived through it. We've all had different outcomes from the pandemic, but I still wanted to put it on this list because it was something that definitely did impact 2020 overall. Something else that happened this year was the cancellation yet again of Shane Dawson. If you don't know who Shane Dawson is, he's a YouTuber. He's been a YouTuber for like, I'm pretty sure 10 plus years. Throughout the times he's reinvented himself. His most recent reinvention was a series of like documentary style videos with pretty problematic YouTubers and giving them a platform to kind of save themselves from whatever scandal they found themselves in, which is ironic because later on he found himself in a pretty huge scandal and a lot of things came to light about his past, a very racist past, a very uncomfortable past. You know you're in trouble when you're just a YouTuber and you have Jada Smith coming at you through Twitter because of videos that were very inappropriate that you filmed yourself in regards to her 11-year-old daughter and is out there online for everyone to see. There's no specific moment of when his cancellation happened, so I can't give you the date. It kind of just happened throughout the year. Like I said before, he's been canceled before, but this time it does not really seem like he's bouncing back. But we'll see what happens in 2021. Something kind of sort of insane and kind of just gave me hope in the human race that also happened in 2020 was a lot of Black Lives Matter protests. It's unfortunate that these protests even have to happen, but it is very encouraging and uplifting to see people from different backgrounds coming together to protest and stand for something that they believe in. And it didn't only happen here in the States, it was like worldwide. People were holding protests, and during such a tough year, it was beautiful to see something so uplifting, you know what I mean? And although protests aren't getting that much news coverage anymore, a lot of people are still protesting in their own ways. Even if you can't physically involve yourself, especially with a pandemic going on, I'm sure that there's a lot of places where you could donate or help out. I will try to link some resources down if I can. But yeah, that was something very eventful and important that I think did happen this year. And I really do hope that all those families that had their family members taken away from them do get justice. Let's all remember to treat each other better in 2021, spread more positivity, and there shouldn't be any room for racism or hatred or anything like that with everything that's going on. It baffles me that it's still a thing. It is though, so huge virtual hug to everyone that attended those Black Lives Matter protests. Another thing that happened in 2020 was that one of the codes from the Zodiac Killer was deciphered or decoded. If you don't know who the Zodiac Killer is, he is a person whose identity to this day remains unsolved. He committed murders between 1960 and 1970 with 5 confirmed cases. At one point he said that he also committed 37 murders. He's famous for basically taunting the police and law enforcement with these letters that he made with codes in them, which to this day is what's helped his identity stay a secret. Back in December of this year, another one of those codes was decoded by 3 private citizens not related to the FBI or anything like that reside back in Australia, which is pretty crazy to think that 3 ordinary people could have decoded this. And I say ordinary just because they don't work for law enforcement, but if they were able to crack the code, they must have been very, very smart people. And this letter is even more taunting. I believe that there are still 2 more letters that the Zodiac Killer wrote that still need to be decoded. And I also think that like in one of those letters, like his true identity is hidden. The answer to his true identity is hidden. It's just wild to think that it's like 50 plus years and his identity still remains unsolved. But at the same time, it's very hopeful that there are regular citizens who can crack these codes, who might be help to the victims' families finally getting some answers and finally being able to get some peace knowing who the killer of their family members was. I don't know. It's just something that I feel like is such a big deal, but it didn't get much coverage, I don't think so. And it happened pretty recently too, back in December, but yeah, that's another thing. Another thing that happened this year was the launch of Tesla's space rocket or spacecraft, which happened back in May 30th. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I understand the science behind it. I don't think I fully understand or appreciate the historical significance to it too. But it was still pretty eventful. I remember me and my friend were coming home from the monuments and we sat down to see it in her phone as it launched off in real time. And it was cool to see even through the screen. And I think that even if you don't fully understand the science behind it, it's still a very big deal. I also think that there hasn't been like a spacecraft launch in almost 10 years or something like that. So I think that added to the significance of this happening. I don't know, it was just wild and I really thought that it was worth including on this list. Last on my list is something that feels like it happened forever ago and I can't believe it happened this year in 2020, and that is the release of Love is Blind. Whether you've seen the actual show from start to finish or only certain clips or only certain memes, you're aware of this show. It was unescapable. It was all over social media. It's hard to believe that once upon a time the image of a dog licking wine from a wine glass was not a real thing, but Jessica from Love is Blind made that be engraved in our heads because that's exactly what happened during the show at one point. It's hard to believe at one point too that Giannina was not talking about how she lost her butterflies in her stomach, because that also happened at one point. It's also hard to believe how successful the experiment was, specifically for Lauren and Cameron. They were one of the first couples to get together in the show, and they are one of the strongest couples from that show too. Their love story is just insane, and I can't imagine how they're going to explain that to their kids one day. Like, yeah, mommy and daddy met each other on a show where we couldn't see each other, but we fell in love. Like, that almost sounds so made up, but it's exactly what happened to them, and cheers to them. So there you have it. That's part 1 of events that took place throughout the year of 2020. I didn't want to get into too many specific details, or else the videos would just be too long. Maybe in the future I'll talk more detailed about these events, because I still have opinions about them, and I don't know, it'll be fun to talk about them still. Anyways, hope to see you all soon for part 2.